Happy Friday, folks, and welcome back to the Random Video Blog, where every single Friday I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, run down my rambling wrestling thoughts, share a few stories, etc., etc. And today is a very special day for yours truly, as April 14th, 2017 marks 9 years since I officially became a WWE fan. Now, I talked about this right here in the video blog, one of the first few video blogs I ever did, exactly 3 years ago, where I talked about what got me into wrestling, who got me into wrestling, why I stuck around when I first started watching. Long story short, that's not what this video is about here today. But long story short, my grandpa was huge in the USA Network. I always used to watch with him, and I saw a couple episodes of Raw in late 2007, but I watched it just to watch it, really, just to say I watched every show on the USA Network. I would watch Burn Notice at that point, Monk, Psych, all the other shows. So I was never really a full-fledged WWE fan until April of 2008, when William Regal became the Raw. He was already the Raw general manager, but he became the 2008 King of the Ring winner. He would go on that ruthless reign as Raw GM, and then all the other stuff, even after he left for a brief period of time from TV because he got suspended. I stuck around for the Jerichos, for the Punks, for the Triple H's, and for the Edges, for the Undertakers, and all that other stuff, and I've become a diehard fan, obviously, 9 years later to the day, as you guys could probably tell. So I figured I would do something special here today for the 9-year anniversary. Next year is going to be crazy, 10 years, a perfect 10, as Ty Dillinger would say, since I became a wrestling fan. I kind of celebrated, earlier this month at WrestleMania, but for the random video blog, I figured I would do something different. And this might be a topic, I know this is a topic people have done time and time again for videos, articles, podcasts, put it on Twitter, stuff like that. I have never actually disclosed my top 9, my favorite wrestling matches ever. Now, I've talked about it before on hashtag, like my top 3, my favorite wrestling match ever, and you guys, anyone who knows me well enough probably knows, and I'll get through that momentarily. But I figured because it's been 9 years since I became a WWE fan, I figured it would be fitting if I did a list of my top 9 favorite WWE matches in the time I've been a fan. I could say of all time, but I feel like, as I've said before, it's hard to say this match is my favorite over a match I've been around for just because I was not watching at that time. It's hard to say I have an emotional attachment to that match watching it back on the fucking network. Like, for example, an honorable mention, I would put up, of all time, I would put Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels on my list from WrestleMania 21. It's not on this list because, again, I was not around at that point, so it's hard to say, I watched it, or, at WrestleMania as a fan, I loved it, blah, blah, blah. I saw it on the network 3-4 years ago, so it's hard to say, I love the match. It's one of my favorite matches in WrestleMania history, but it's hard to say it's my favorite because I was not around for it, if you kind of get what I'm saying. So don't be surprised if, oh my God, he left out Austin and Rock from WrestleMania 17, chill out. It's not on here. It's a great match. It's not on here, though, because I was not around at that point. I cannot say it's my favorite. It's an amazing match. It's one of the best matches. I can't say it's my favorite because I was not around for it. So, again, this is spanning from April 2008 to current day to April of 2017. All right, sorry about that, folks. I had to cut the video there for a second. I just realized, literally, as I was filming the video, I looked at my list here, and I thought, fuck, I literally only put down 7 matches. I'm such a dumb idiot. Stupid idiot, as Jericho would say. I made my list, a couple weeks ago, but I didn't put down the full 9 matches. I only put down 7, and I thought there were 9 here when I first started recording, so fuck me. So let's get started here. I put down 2 random matches. Not really random, because I would put this in my list anyway. But what I tried to do with this list was get 1 match from each year. Not every year, but most years since I started watching. So there would be 10 years. I think there's only 1 year that's left out from 08 to current day. I mean, I guess 2017, it would be. Would that be 10 years? That would be 10 years. And we're only doing 9 matches. So I'm pretty sure if I'm looking at my list right now, yeah, the only year I think left off is 2017. I didn't put down any matches from this year, so I think we're pretty much good from 08 to 2016. That's just really the OCD in me wanting to do 1 match from each year, but it is what it is. I wanted to get a bit flavor from each year in the year that I've been a wrestling fan. So anyway, coming in at number 9, and these early installments can be easily interchangeable, but coming in at number 9, from Over the Limit 2012, CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Now, these two had a couple matches on Raw and on SmackDown early on in 2012, and they were all great matches. And I remember, shout out to Donnie Wood from Ring Rust Radio, Donald Wood on the Twitter, Donald_Wood on the Twitter. Just met him for the first time in person a couple weeks ago at WrestleMania weekend, but he tweeted me on Twitter. I'm like, oh, Punk and Bryan should be a good match. He's like, dude, if they give these guys 15 minutes, this is going to be a tremendous match. Because I remember being like flustered that they gave it away on an episode of Raw of all things. But thankfully, they waited to do the full-fledged feud until the springtime, until May, June, July of 2012. And by this point, going into Over the Limit, there was literally next to no build for Punk and Bryan. Because almost all of WWE programming at that time was building up, of all things, John Cena versus fucking John Laurinaitis. That was the entire build of this pay-per-view. That was the huge sell for this show. So Punk and Bryan had next to no time to build up their own feud. But they went out there anyway and had a fucking amazing match. In my opinion, the second best match, if not the best match in 2012, right up there with Triple H and Undertaker from WrestleMania. An honorable mention for this list because I fucking love that match. But, yeah, Punk and Bryan from Over the Limit 2012 has got to go up there as one of my favorites. Just a pure wrestling match. And, of course, AJ Lee would get involved in the feud a bit later on. And, she would add another element to that feud that wasn't really there before with Kane and the crazy stuff. And it was really entertaining. And I thought their Money in the Bank match was really good, too. I thought the Over the Limit match, that was better. At just about a half hour, they got a ton of time. Great fucking match. I'm pretty sure it's on Punk's DVD. So go back and watch that when you get the chance, or on the network, whatever. Just a really good match. Coming in at number 8. I almost put 9 up there for a second. I'm such a dumb idiot today. Coming in at number 8 from 2008's SummerSlam event, The Undertaker versus Edge inside Hell in a Cell. Before Hell in a Cell became the pay-per-view that it is today, and then it was completely watered down. But back then, it still meant something. Even 10 years after it was first innovated in 1997, bringing back Hell in a Cell once a year, twice a year, whatever, still meant something back in 2008. And it was so perfectly fitting for the Edge and Undertaker feud. And I talked about it before. I love the Taker and Edge feud. It might have been number 1 of my favorite Cell match of all time, or either number 1 or 2. When I did that list back over a year and a half ago, my favorite Hell in a Cell matches of all time. Not matches that took place at the pay-per-view. I think there were no matches that took place at the pay-per-view, but favorite Hell in a Cell matches that took place inside the cell. This was way up there. I love the Taker and Edge feud. As I said, I got into wrestling in April of 2008, and Raw was the first show I watched on a week-to-week basis. It wasn't long, though, before I started watching SmackDown regularly, too. And the first feud I got accustomed to that kind of hooked me into watching SmackDown was The Undertaker and Edge. And I can't wait to rewatch all the episodes of SmackDown from 2008 at some point. I just don't have the time. But they're all up in the network, and Raw for that matter, too. But Taker and Edge was a great feud. They had the great match at WrestleMania, a couple of good matches at Backlash, Judgment Day, that awesome one-night stand TLC match. But the Cell match, in my opinion, was the best of them all. They kind of had callbacks to their previous encounters from when Edge cashed in the first time a year and a half earlier, to Edge knocking him out with a camera at Survivor Series 2007, and everything else that kind of played into their feud throughout 2008. And this marked the return of The Undertaker after he was banished from the WWE earlier that year. So again, just an amazing match, very fitting as the main event of that show. A very good show, too. I love SummerSlam 2008. You had Cena and Batista on that show, too. Triple H and Khali was surprisingly passable. Punk and JBL had a good match, but Cena and JBL, another honorable mention for this list. Not Cena and JBL, sorry. Cena Batista from that year's SummerSlam event as well. Really good match, but this was the better match, in my opinion, and number 8 on my list. So coming in at number 7, obviously had to be on the list. I mean, people are going to complain it's not number 1, but whatever. From WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. So WrestleMania 25, I mean, I was kind of around for WrestleMania 24, not really. Obviously, April 14th was after WrestleMania 24, but WrestleMania 25 was my first full WrestleMania because I started watching as a regular fan in April of 2008, so right after WrestleMania 24. So WrestleMania 25 was going to be my first Mania. I got grounded. I couldn't watch the show. And John invited me over to watch the show with him because he always ordered the pay-per-views back then. So what happened was that I keep on going back in my chair like this, by the way. So if you see me fucking like floating like that, that's why. I apologize for my fucking ADHD here. But yeah, so what I did, because I couldn't watch the show when my parents weren't home, I was such a fucking sneak. So what I did when my parents weren't home, I sneaked on the computer. I had my little brother Jackson as the lookout, making sure they didn't come home. And when they did, I would jump off the computer. But what I did instead of watching the show, I logged into WWE.com's. They had the old universe, like their version of Facebook back in the day. So what I did, I went on there and I checked out the live chat with like Howard Finkel and Corey Clayton, I think the name was, of the person who monitored that website. Anyway, they did a live chat of WrestleMania, kind of like a play-by-play. I'm like, oh my God, Tombstone, it's going to be it. 1, 2, kick out. Oh, and I like spit out my hot chocolate. I just remember that happening play-by-play. And even Jackson remembers that happening, like when I spit out my hot chocolate, when I read that he kicked out of the Tombstone. So even in reading about the match, I felt engaged and compelled and captivated by what was going on in this match. And when I finally got the chance to watch it, it was one of, if not the very first wrestling DVD I ever got for my birthday that year in June of 2009. I watched the match back, the entire show, which at the time I loved. Looking back, I don't know why I did. I was a fucking mark. I'm still a mark, but I was a bigger mark then in terms of falling for shit and loving everything, whatever. But watching for the first time reminded me how great the match was, or really opened my eyes to how great the match was. So again, awesome match. Had to put it here on the list. By far, far and away, the best match of 09, and probably the greatest match, or one of the greatest matches, not only in WrestleMania history, but in WWE history, period. Coming in at number 6, again, you're like, oh, why is that match over Shawn and Taker? Again, it's all due to my emotional attachment to each match. But coming in at number 6, The Miz and Daniel Bryan from Night of Champions 2010, taking place in Chicago. One of the very first pay-per-views I ever ordered. I think the second show I ever ordered next to Royal Rumble 2010. I didn't put any Rumbles on here. I probably should have. Those are honorable mentions too. I loved the 2010 Rumble, so that's probably an honorable mention as well. But yeah, going into Night of Champions 2010, the real reason I was invested in this match, I was never the biggest Daniel Bryan fan prior to this point, but what made me a fan of his was that knowing that I would be able to meet him. So he came back to WWE after being fired for a dumb fucking reason that summer. He came back at SummerSlam. And by that point, he already signed on to do indie dates with a company called Northeast Wrestling, which I talked about before here on the channel multiple times over the years. I've met so many awesome wrestlers, like including Matt Hardy, several times at these shows. So Daniel Bryan already signed on to do this show. And at that point, you know, they wanted to let him fulfill his indie dates. So 2 weeks after this show, the weekend of Hell in a Cell, the day before Hell in a Cell to be exact, he would be at the show. And if he won this match on this show at Night of Champions, he would walk into that event. I would meet him as the United States champion. I was like, holy fuck, he needs to win. And the match itself was really, really good. I don't know if it's Miz's best match. I don't think it is. It's probably up there, though. Daniel Bryan's first title victory. The crowd was into it. They love Daniel Bryan. He's obviously not from Chicago, but kind of cut his teeth in Chicago as part of Ring of Honor and all over the world on the indies for so many years. So they knew him well. They respected him. He was over there. Miz had a great performance here. Alex Riley was really good at ringside as well. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this match. Definitely one of the better matches of Miz's career. And Daniel Bryan forcing his former mentor to tap out to win his first United States Championship. So great match, and I just remember going crazy, so happy to, you know, have Daniel Bryan win so I could later meet him as United States Champion, and I would. And Daniel Bryan was a really cool dude. Coming in at number 5, we are cracking the top 5 here. Coming in at number 5 from a SummerSlam 2013, CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar. Another show that that I enjoy a lot. I did not put. I was gonna say Christian Del Rio took place in that show. I didn't put Christian Del Rio on this list. It's probably it would be on here though. It's an honorable mention obviously, but it should be on here. Anyway, yeah, Punk and Lesnar from SummerSlam 2013. Another show that I'm very fond of. That is a very safe place in my heart. Just because I went to the show, not attended the show, but I watched the show at Buffalo Wild Wings with my stepdad and Jackson, and the entire show was great. You had Punk, you had Del Rio and Christian for the World Heavyweight Championship. You had Cena and Daniel Bryan in the main event for the WWE title, and then you had Punk and Lesnar as kind of like the semi-main event. And these guys went out there and fucking killed it. Had an amazing match. And people were saying for months, oh, it's not believable that Punk would be, you know, a threat to Brock Lesnar. Which at this point, like all these years later, I would argue as well. But that was before Brock broke the streak. Like he was still a monster, but come on, he fucking lost to John Cena and Triple H in the matter of like a year. So he wasn't that big of a threat at that point, as much as he is today or would be a year later. Not even a year later, like 6 months after this. But anyway, these guys went out there and fucking killed it. Had just a really, really good match that would later lead to Brock Lesnar breaking the streak 8 months later. But Punk had an awesome performance here. He looked really, really good in defeat. A lot of great back and forth action. He was not completely squashed by Brock Lesnar as many other people would be. And I would argue the last great wrestling match of Lesnar's career. I mean, there was a lot of brawling and MMA style stuff too. And the Roman Reigns match was great at WrestleMania a couple of years ago, and the match he just had with Goldberg. But those were more like spots. And I mean, for what it was a great match. But it wasn't the same match that this was, and I thought this was terrific. Brock Lesnar in the end, about to tap out to CM Punk's Anaconda Vice, and before he could, Paul Heyman interferes, and which was the real reason why Punk and Lesnar were feuding in the first place was because of Paul Heyman, how he betrayed CM Punk about a month before this. So before he can give Paul Heyman his comeuppance and attack him and lock him into the Anaconda Vice, Brock Lesnar just destroys Punk with a chair, hits him with the F5, and it's over. So again, tremendous match. Coming in at number 4 from NXT TakeOver All Revolution from December of 2014, Neville and Sami Zayn for the NXT Championship, or Adrian Neville, whatever. Again, a match with a great build between two babyfaces, and the crowd was obviously in Zayn's favor. They really, really, really wanted him to win the belt, as did I. And two former friends, now enemies, going after the championship. Not a full-fledged heel turn from Neville. That wouldn't happen until 2 years later. And he's a great heel, by the way. And I think we kind of saw shades of that in this match. Kind of saw shades of it here. But, yeah, no, what made this match was so great was, again, Zayn's underdog abilities, people kind of rallying him behind him and wanting to see him win that championship. And in the end, he was successful, coming out on top against Neville as the new NXT champion. The story they told here at the end, Zayn holding the championship like should have hit Neville with it, should have hit Neville with it, should have hit Neville with it, and he ultimately did not. The crowd's chanting no. He threw down the belt. Neville super kick, looked like he won the belt. It looked like he retained the title. He did not. Zayn in the end with the haluva kick in the corner for the NXT title victory again. Just incredible match, an incredible match. And that would lead to Zayn getting beat up by Kevin Owens afterwards, the debuting Kevin Owens, who had appeared earlier on in the evening, but he showed up after the main event to congratulate his best friend, seemingly, before betraying him and kicking off that illustrious feud that still stands all these years later. So again, awesome match. Probably one of, I'll talk about that in a second, but probably my second favorite, or third favorite, it's up there, match in NXT history. Coming in at number 3 from SummerSlam 2016, the freshest match I believe on this list, John Cena and AJ Styles. A large part of this is because I was there, but for so fucking long, I had waited. Many people had waited for John Cena and AJ Styles to finally come head-to-head, engage in battle, and they did at Summer. I mean, they already had a match on Money in the Bank, which was great too. But the build of the story was so good. Like, AJ turned heel on John Cena. Then he beats him at the Money in the Bank show with help of the club. And people are like, oh, what a tainted victory. Why do they have to cheat? Blah, blah, blah. Cena gets his win back at Battleground, but by pinning AJ in his 6-man tag team match, him and Enzo and Cass beating the club. And then, again, back to one-on-one. No Enzo and Cass, no club, no nothing. Just Cena and AJ one-on-one. The promo for this was tremendous. One of my favorite promos in years. And at the end, too, when, like, AJ's, like, laughing at John Cena's remarks about, like, what the hell are you doing here? And he's, like, laughing. And the music that plays in the background is great. But AJ goes, I can't wait, John, until SmackDown Live on Tuesday, when you come out here and say that AJ Styles is better than I am. And when you do, you're a loser. And if you don't, you're a liar. Either way, John, I win. Tremendous line. Even someone at work came up to me and was like, I saw that promo. That was a really good line from AJ Styles. I'm like, you're fucking right. You goddamn right it was. That was a great line. Great promo. Match, awesome. Got a ton of time. Flurry of finishers. When AJ kicked out of the AA off the top rope, I was floored. John and I were like, fuck this. It's over. Whatever. Cena wins. LOL. I was expecting Cena to win. And even if AJ won, I did not expect it to be clean. So AJ kicks out. He powers back. Hits a Styles Clash, followed up by a phenomenal forearm for the clean victory. That's a big fucking deal for a former face of TNA to beat John Cena, of all people, clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring, one-on-one match. Again, huge fucking deal. Big boost for AJ Styles. I honestly believe he would not be as hot as he is right now if he did not beat John Cena clean at SummerSlam last year. He'd still be a big star. People would still like him. But that was the real turning point for AJ Styles as a main event guy in WWE. He's always had the tools to be a top guy in the company, but that was really what made people look at him as a certified main event player in WWE. So again, tremendous match. Being there live was just unreal. And my third favorite match of all time in WWE as a fan. So we go to another match I was also in attendance for the previous summer, almost exactly 1 year earlier, at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. For the NXT Women's Championship, Bayley versus the defending champion, Sasha Banks. Again, another tremendous story with another terrific video package about how Bayley was not called up to the main roster when Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte were. She was the runt of the litter of the 4 horsewomen. And Sasha wanted to prove her wrong. She's a loser. You can't win it when it matters most. Sasha, fucking amazing heel. Why they haven't turned her heel yet, I have no idea. But I thought that was just terrific. So yeah, the match itself was just really, really, really good. The little things, like Sasha banging on the foot of Bayley, like smashing her hand into the ground. Not the foot, the hand with her foot, banging her hand into the ground. And then really just telling her, you can't do this, you're a loser, with the headband and going like, yeah, this is great, like I'm better than you, Bayley, flipping over the top rope, and the belly to Bayley out of nowhere, kick out, hits it off, later for the second time later on to get the victory after the Hurricane Rana off the top rope. And that was fucking crazy. It looked like Sasha Banks broke her neck. So the match was tremendous. Really, really good match, capped off by an emotional, amazing victory, a la Sami Zayn from TakeOver the year prior at Our Evolution, with Bayley finally winning the NXT Women's title. A story they have yet to replicate on the main roster. She's been good on the main roster, but not nearly as good as she was in NXT in terms of how they portrayed her underdog character and the journey to getting the title, all that other shit. But it was really, really cool, though, with Bayley finally coming out on top, being there for it. I've always been a huge Bayley fan, so to see that live was really cool for me. I marked out hard for that. Ask Mike Yoder. He was there with me. How we were going nuts. So just a really, really good match. And I think, in my opinion, the greatest women's match in WWE history. NXT, main roster, whatever. I would have to say Banks and Bayley. There's been a lot of good women's matches on the main roster in the past year. But I have to say that's probably the greatest of all time. Really was. Given the build, how the match played out, the aftermath. And I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before we see this feud play out on the main roster as well. Hopefully, come SummerSlam in a couple months, also in Brooklyn. I think it kind of writes itself. And then we get to number 1. My favorite WWE match as a fan to date. Again, a lot of these matches come close, but I mean, with Banks and Bayley, I watched that match back. I think I've watched it back maybe fucking 6 or 7 times, like in the past couple of years, in the last year and a half. At least 7 times or so. I'm sure I've seen this match just as many times, if not more. CM Punk versus John Cena at Money in the Bank 2011. Again, you talk about story. Punk, I mean, I'm not going to recap the whole thing. I've talked about it a million times here before on the show. But Punk, dropping the pipe bomb on the WWE fans a couple weeks prior, saying he's leaving the WWE with that WWE Championship. A match that was not supposed to be anything special whatsoever, but that pipe bomb changed everything. And now it became a do-or-die situation for John Cena. He had to win, and if he didn't, he'd be embarrassing the company. In Chicago, CM Punk's hometown crowd going fucking nuts for the rebellious returning hero. John Cena getting showered with booze. I mean, is every spot perfect? No, there was a botch or two. But I mean, overall, the match was fucking amazing. The atmosphere was great. The crowd was great. Even the swerve with Vince and John Laurinaitis attempting to throw at the match. And John's like, oh, we're not going to do it like that. He gets back in the ring, eats another GTS. And Punk was really, at that point, for him to kick out of the AA was a big fucking deal. Now everyone does it. Wade Barrett, Stardust, everyone fucking kicks out of the AA. But back then it was still a big deal. So when Punk did it, I think twice, it was a pretty big deal and really cemented him as a star in my mind. So Punk wins, he leaves, and he's the new WWE champion. One of the best times to be a WWE fan, in my opinion. So that's it, guys. I apologize for the long video, but justifiably so. They've run down my top 9 favorite WWE matches as a fan in the past 9 years. So again, if you skipped ahead to the end, do a quick recap here. Number 9, CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan from Over the Limit 2012. Number 8, Edge and The Undertaker from SummerSlam 2008. Number 7, we had Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker from WrestleMania 25. Number 5, The Miz versus Daniel Bryan from Night of Champions 2010. Number 5, CM Punk. I think I said, Miz and Daniel Bryan 6, I think. I'm fucking with my own mind here. Number 5, CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar from SummerSlam 2013. Number 4, Neville versus Sami Zayn from NXT TakeOver All Revolution from December of 2014. Number 3, John Cena versus AJ Styles from SummerSlam 2016. Number 2, Bayley versus Sasha Banks from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 1 from August of 2015. And number 1, John Cena versus CM Punk from Money in the Bank 2011, July 2011. So that's it, guys. My top 9 favorite WWE matches ever. Or really, in the time I've been a fan, again, I would put a lot of other matches on there from Rock and Stone Cold. I would put, what was the match I mentioned before? Angle and Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 21. Batista Triple H from Vengeance 05 would also be on there. A lot of great matches I neglected to include for a specific reason. But again, the honorable mentions, Rumble match 2010 I would put on here. Triple H and Undertaker from WrestleMania 28. Cena Rock number 1 I'd also put on there. Punk and Taker maybe. Maybe not. But Rollins Orton from WrestleMania. Did I put any matches from 2015 on here? I did. Banks and Bayley. But yeah, Rollins Orton would also be on here from WrestleMania 31 in March of 2015. But that's it, guys. Many years in the making. I've never actually done a list quite like this. Maybe of my first top 2 or 3 favorite WWE matches, but never 9. So you get a full list here today, an exclusive list provided by yours truly, Graham GSM Matthews. So I'll be spending today and the entire weekend probably watching the WWE Network. What else is new? But celebrating 9 years as a WWE fan. My faniversary, as I like to call it. But that being said, guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Be sure to find me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. And be sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel for daily content. Leave a comment on the video. Share the video. All that stuff is amazingly appreciated. So that being said, guys, have an awesome rest of your weekend, whenever your faniversary might be, either this month as well or coming up or it's already passed. Love wrestling, enjoy wrestling, and I'll catch your ass down the road.